Matt Rempe's 4-game suspension is over, but he will not be back in the lineup tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. Is this the right decision? And what is the latest on Ryan Lindgren?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1029 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Matt Rempe, as we mentioned just a second ago, his 4-game suspension has come and gone. He is eligible to re-enter the Rangers lineup tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. But by all accounts, as far as, what was going on at practice and what Peter Laviolette said after practice a little bit earlier today, that will not be happening. It sounds like Matt Rempe will be a healthy scratch, actually for the first time in his career, because when he was called up, he played in 10 consecutive games for the Rangers. Got the match penalty, got ejected from the game, got suspended for 4 games, and obviously was ineligible to play. So this is the first time that he will be a healthy scratch for the New York Rangers. I know there's some Ranger fans that are going to be upset by this, and I can understand that to a certain extent. Obviously, Matt Rempe is a guy that's kind of sparked this team. He's really captured the imagination of Rangers fans with his willingness and obvious ability to fight. He's also a heavy hitter and somebody that contributes in other parts of the game as well. He's a net front presence and somebody that looks like he might have a future in this league, especially when you consider that he was only a 6th-round draft pick and he's done very well for the team so far. But I'm okay. And honestly, I think I'm actually in favor of Matt Rempe saying this one out as a healthy scratch for a couple of reasons. To begin with, the Rangers have been winning and winning and winning. I believe they are now 16-3-1 in their last 20. Now, of course, credit where it's due. Rempe was a part of that. He was in the lineup for a lot of those games, and he's been a part of this hot streak the last 4 games, obviously notwithstanding. So, Rempe has had a hand in all that, but they've also gone, the Rangers, 3-1 in his absence, and they've won each of their last 2 games by 3 goals apiece. And on top of that, when you look at the player that he might, replace in the lineup, I would think it would probably be Johnny Brodzinski, but certainly it would be somebody in the bottom 6. And the bottom 6 played great the last couple of games, especially this most recent one. Peter Laviolette pointed that out. In the most recent game against the Islanders, obviously the Rangers won that by 3 goals, and the bottom 6 forwards combined for 3 goals in that game. And this is what Laviolette had to say on the situation, as far as having options and obviously a lot of different forwards that he can go to right now. I'm going to move guys around. We're going to keep 13 players moving and get ourselves playoff ready. And so it sounds like this might be, those are very, brief comments, obviously. But what I make of that is that it's going to be kind of fluid and the Rangers might look to play matchups. And with that being said, that kind of leads me into my next reason why I'm cool with Rempe not playing tonight. The Rangers are playing the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the Jets are one of the surprise teams around the NHL. They've really played well this year. Certainly looks like they're playoff bound as well. There's not really a ton of history between the Rangers and the Jets. Not exactly a top 3 NHL rivalry of all time. To my knowledge, there's not really any bad blood between these teams. You never know what can happen. For all I know, maybe there's multiple fights in this game tonight and it gets really nasty. You never know what can happen. And it doesn't take much to ignite that. We saw that, the last couple of years between the Rangers and Flames. It's what I call the out-of-nowhere rivalry. You never know when something like that can happen. But on paper, at least, there's no real animosity, no real bad blood between these two teams. And that means that Rempe is not needed in the lineup as much as he might be against other teams. Now, of course, Rempe does do some other good things. It's not just the physicality and the fighting. But when you combine the fact that, again, no bad blood between the Rangers and Jets, you also look at the fact that the Rangers have been winning. I think it's completely fine, once again, that Rempe sits out for this game. And I mentioned a second ago that the player that Rempe would replace in the lineup would, in all likelihood, be Johnny Brodzinski. Now, of course, Brodzinski had a rough game against Tampa, a couple of costly turnovers. That first one led to Tampa's first goal of the game, and that cut the Ranger lead to 2-1, and Tampa was well on their way to, pretty impressive comeback against the Rangers, and that all started with a miscue by Brodzinski. But overall, Brodzinski's played very well. He played very well in each of these past two games this weekend against the Penguins and the Islanders. He ended up scoring a goal on a redirection against the Islanders. You had Keandre Miller taking a shot, and I kind of just glossed over this in the last episode. This was a heck of a redirection here. Brodzinski's in front, and he put the puck exactly where it needed to be, right over the pad, right under the right arm, I believe it was, of Ilya Sorokin. An excellent redirection and a goal for Johnny Brodzinski there. And honestly, the game before against the Penguins, he had another really big play in that game as well. It's not really going to stand out because it's not a goal or anything like that. But basically, in that game, it's back and forth, thus far against the Penguins. It's 3-3 in the second period, and the Penguins had just tied the game, and you've got Brodzinski taking a shot. It was blocked. He finds the loose puck, picks it up, tries to move toward the net, and gets pulled down. Penalty called against Pittsburgh, and that was the beginning of that excellent sequence there for the Rangers. They had back-to-back power play chances. They scored on both of them. And the first power play that the Rangers got, of course, was the result of Johnny Brodzinski, getting to that loose puck, drawing that penalty. He set the whole thing up for the Rangers to score a couple of power play goals there. And something else that I'll go back to here as far as, not really knowing who should be the healthy scratch and who deserves to be in the lineup and who should come out of the lineup. Good problem to have. That's kind of a cliche a little bit, but it's very true. Right now it's tough to ID which player on the Rangers, should not be in the lineup. I think everybody, every forward, and honestly every defenseman too, brings something to the table. And, when you take one of these guys out of the lineup, you're missing at least something. And, I think that's the case with either Brodzinski or Rempe. Again, I have to imagine going forward that it'll probably be one or the other of those two that's the odd man out on pretty much every night. Unless, of course, somebody's dealing with a minor injury and the Rangers, they're safe as far as the playoffs are concerned. So maybe in certain situations, Laviolette looks to get somebody a rest. I mean, you don't really see that much in hockey, but from time to time, it could make some sense. And the other reason why I'm all good with, Rempe not being in the lineup, he'll get back out there. Nobody should be losing their mind about the kid being a healthy scratch for one game. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, a couple of minutes ago, he got called up for that February 18th outdoor game against the Islanders, and of course, got into a fight literally 1 second into his NHL career. But that was the start of him playing 10 consecutive games for the Rangers. He did not come out of the lineup from the moment that he made his debut up until the moment that he got suspended. So again, this will be his first time as a healthy scratch. Clearly, the Rangers like what he brings to the table. They value him. And I don't think I have to tell you guys that we have not seen the last of Matt Rempe this season. I don't know exactly when he'll be back out there. It honestly could be the very next game. On Thursday, the Rangers play the Bruins. And obviously, there's a rivalry there. It's been heated between those two teams the last couple of years there. The Bruins, for years there, were always trying to punk out the Rangers. And Matt Rempe's there now, and good luck trying to do that. So, we'll see. If the Rangers, if they lose tonight against the Jets, I hate even saying that, but if they lose, I think that probably opens the door for Rempe to step back in there against the Bruins. Even if they win, maybe they do put Rempe back in there. They don't want him to get too rusty, and they do want him to, get another game under his belt and get back into the swing of things as we continue our approach to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, again, no issues whatsoever. I'm actually in favor of Brodzinski getting another game tonight over Rempe. Rempe will be back out there. Fear not. We have not seen the last of the Rempire State Building this season. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about Ryan Lindgren. The Rangers got what I think you would have to consider to be mostly good news about Ryan Lindgren. Obviously he had that injury and it looks scary. But again, mostly good news about Ryan Lindgren. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Also, want to let everybody know that Locked On has, of course, launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best MLB season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And of course, for the everydayers, in our next episode, going to be breaking down whatever happens between the Rangers and the Jets tonight. Puck drops at 7 p.m. at Madison Square Garden. But for right now, let's go ahead and talk about Ryan Lindgren. He gets what I have to consider a mostly encouraging diagnosis, at least when you kind of just remember what it was like, seeing Ryan Lindgren go down. Obviously, he hit the boards really hard, him and Pajot. I mean, it was nothing that Pajot did that was dirty or anything like that, but the two of them were, battling for position. They both crashed into the boards hard. Lindgren got the worst of it, falls down, hurts his knee. Madison Square Garden went, eerily silent, and Lindgren's down the ice grabbing at his knee, and he's got to be helped off the ice by two of his teammates, and it did not look good. But I did see not everybody, but there were some Ranger fans on social media that were saying that, oh, his season is over. And maybe on one hand, you're trying to do a reverse jinx. And as somebody who's kind of a superstitious sports fan, I can understand that at least to some degree. But my question for these people that were saying that Ryan Lindgren's season was over is, have you paid attention to Ryan Lindgren over the past handful of seasons, basically ever since he's been a member of the New York Rangers? Do you really not know better by now than to bet against Ryan Lindgren? I mean, this guy, if he's able to stand up, he's going to find a way to play hockey. And that seems to be what we're seeing right now. It's the latest example of this, that toughness from Ryan Lindgren. Now, of course, we don't know for sure when he's going to be back in the lineup, but we can go by what some of the beat writers mentioned. This is a tweet from friend of the show, Vince Mercogliano. That's what he had to say about the Ryan Lindgren situation on Twitter. Word on Ryan Lindgren is that he will be out for a few weeks, but the injury is not as bad as initially feared. He's expected to make a full recovery, but it's to be determined what that means as far as playoff status. And then Vince, not long after that, followed up with another tweet. Based on that timeline, it sounds like it's going to be tight, but doable if everything falls into place. The playoffs are pretty much a month away. Lindgren has a chance to be back when they start, but if not, his odds of a return increase the deeper the Rangers go. And so if you're like me, probably the first thing you did when you, saw this tweet, read this tweet, or even right now, maybe some people are hearing this from the first time from me, just reading Vince's tweet here. But the first thing you do is you run to the schedule and you try to figure out how much time is left in the regular season exactly. And can he get back for a couple games in the regular season? Can he get back for the start of the playoffs? And looking at the Rangers schedule, the regular season finale, believe it or not, less than a month away for the New York Rangers. The last regular season game for the Rangers will be at home against the Ottawa Senators on Monday, April 15th. So, again, we don't know exactly how fast Ryan Lindgren is going to heal. And, they say he's going to be out for a few weeks. We don't know how much a few is, and they might not know either. So, it's basically all just kind of conjecture at this point. But going by the information that we have, it certainly seems possible that he can indeed make it back before the playoffs. And I think in a perfect world, you'd love to be able to get right. I mean, in a perfect world, Ryan Lindgren wouldn't be hurt. And even if he was hurt, he'd be out there, after only missing a game or two. But in a more realistic perfect world, I guess we can say, the best thing that could happen to me is Ryan Lindgren, at the very least, can get back at the end of the regular season, maybe for even just like the last 2 or 3 regular season games, get him back out there. You limit his ice time. I mean, those games, the seeding could always be on the line, and maybe the Rangers are trying to hold off the Canes for the Metro, or maybe they're trying to track down the Panthers or the Bruins or both of those teams for the best record in the Eastern Conference, playoffs, going into the playoffs. That's always possible, but the Rangers are not exactly going to be fighting for their playoff lives in the last 2 or 3 games of the regular season. And so you put Ryan Lindgren out there, you let him test it. Once again, I think you limit his ice time just to get him kind of reacclimated. And you use those final 2 or 3 regular season games as, a little bit of a bridge into the playoffs. I mean, that's not to say that Ryan Lindgren can't come back and game 1 of a playoff series, game 2 of a playoff series, game 3, whatever it might be, and go out there and play good hockey. He's certainly capable of that. But we all know, we're all hockey fans. We know what the Stanley Cup playoffs are all about. We all know it's a different kind of monster. And that being the case, I think it would be good, again, if Ryan Lindgren could get back out there for a couple of regular season games, low pressure regular season games at the end of the season before, the insanity of the Stanley Cup playoffs obviously begins. But yeah, I mean, again, this to me is excellent news. Would I love to hear that he'll definitely be back for the playoffs? Yeah, but that looked bad. The fact that he couldn't put any weight on his leg, and just the fact that Ryan Lindgren was ruled out from returning to a game, your eyebrows kind of go up a little bit. It does make you a little bit nervous. But with all that said, again, this is mostly fantastic news for the Rangers. And obviously, fingers crossed that Lindgren can get healthy and come back 100% and hopefully finish out the regular season. But if not, be ready to go at the start of the playoffs. The other side effect from this whole thing is that we will see Chad Ruhwedel making his New York Ranger debut tonight against the Jets. The Rangers acquired Ruhwedel from the Penguins in exchange for a 4th rounder just a couple hours before the trade deadline, and he will indeed work into the lineup tonight. The Rangers also, we talked about this in our last episode, but they recently recalled Brandon Scanlon. He will be the healthy scratch alongside Matt Rempe, of course. A silver lining, I guess, very, very silver lining to the Lindgren injury, because obviously we didn't want to see that happening. But we will get to see, Chad Ruhwedel in action tonight. We will get to see what he brings to the table. I've said this in the past, too, because, the Rangers bring over Ruhwedel, and they go with Zach Jones after Trouba gets hurt. So that means that Ruhwedel is no higher than 8th on the depth chart. And I said, good for Zach Jones, happy for him. And Zach Jones has played very well, some of his best NHL hockey to date. But I've been saying all along that I think it would be a good thing for Ruhwedel to play at least a couple of games in the regular season for the Rangers, because we don't want to see Ruhwedel, not play in an NHL game for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then all of a sudden he's got to get back into the lineup and make his Ranger debut in, game 6 or 7 of a Stanley Cup playoff series. That's not ideal. And you talk about being thrown right into the deep end. So I think the good news here is that Ruhwedel is going to get at least one game. I'm not sure, if Trouba's due back. I'm trying to remember when he got hurt. All this stuff blends together after a while. But it's possible, that we will see at least, a couple games from Ruhwedel, and, he'll get a fair chance to put his best foot forward and, just see how he does here. And as far as the defense pairings tonight, this is what I would do. Obviously, again, no Trouba, no Lindgren, so you got to be creative and kind of improvise a little bit here. The first thing I'm going to do, though, and we could debate whether this is technically the top pairing now or the second pairing, but I'm going to keep Braden Schneider and K'Andre Miller together. They've played very well since they've been put on the same pairing. Miller has played some of his best hockey of the season recently. I do think that started that trend with Miller before Jacob Trouba got injured, before everybody starts saying, well, it's because Trouba's gone. He doesn't have Trouba, so that's why he's playing. No, that's not why. It's just the way it's gone lately. K'Andre Miller's playing some of his best hockey. It's been a little bit up and down this season. But again, I think that upturn began before Trouba got injured and had to come out of the lineup. The other reason I'm keeping these two together is that Braden Schneider has had, we've talked about this before too, but he's had a million different defense partners since he's come into the league. And he's only been in the NHL for a little more than 2, calendar years. And let's just keep it the same for Braden Schneider just once. Let's just let him stick with the same defenseman for more than a handful of games at a time. And we'll do that with K'Andre Miller. The other pairing that I'm going to go with here is Erik Gustafsson and Adam Fox. I was really tempted to go with Zach Jones and Adam Fox. We actually saw that pairing a couple of years ago when Zach Jones was called up. He played 10 or 12 games at the end of a season one year, the last year that the Rangers missed the playoffs. And he played with Adam Fox, and he did well in that role. And I thought about it. I was tempted to do this, but given that Gustafsson is the veteran and he's kind of used to moving around the lineup anyway, he was playing the right side not too long ago, so it's something that he's used to doing. Let's go with Gustafsson, the veteran, with Adam Fox, and let's not mess with Zach Jones. Zach Jones, as I just mentioned, playing some of the best hockey of his career, so let's not put too much on his plate. Let's let him continue to do his thing on the third pairing. and hopefully continue to just play great hockey. Again, it was tempting to move Jones up for me. We'll see what the Rangers look to do. But I'm going to err on the side, I guess, playing it a little bit safe here. We'll go with Gustafsson and Fox. And that means, of course, that Jones will be out there with Ruhwedel for Ruhwedel's Ranger debut. And doing all this also allows Gustafsson to move back to his more familiar left side. And Ruhwedel will come into the lineup, and he will play the right side, which I believe I know for sure he's played more right than left, but just about exclusively on the right side for his career for Chad Ruhwedel. So that's what I would do. We'll see how the Rangers line up a little bit later, a couple more hours before the puck drops against the Jets here tonight. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to go ahead and actually shift our attention to the Hartford Wolf Pack. We've kind of lost them in the shuffle a little bit, but we'll do a quick update on the pack. We'll get to that in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. You should not have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so I figure once again, we're way best due to turn some of our attention to the Hartford Wolf Pack. Obviously we had the trade deadline craziness and everything, and we were all over that. And the Rangers have been playing a lot of games, but yeah, always good to make some time for the Hartford Wolf Pack. The Pack right now currently in 4th place in the Atlantic Division, 29 wins, 18 losses, 7 overtime losses, 2 shootout losses. I said that it's good to take a look at the Wolf Pack. My timing is a little bit off here though, because the Pack has actually lost 5 consecutive games from least recent to most recent. You've got a 3-2 shootout loss to Bridgeport, a 2-1 overtime loss to Charlotte, a 4-0 loss to Charlotte, a 4-2 loss to Utica, and a 4-0 loss to Hershey. So they've scored only 5 goals in their past 5 games, which is obviously not a recipe for success. As far as offense, that obviously the well has just kind of run dry. But I want to talk about a couple of players currently on the Wolfpack, and I wanted to start with one who was not there the last time that we focus in on the Hartford Wolfpack, and that is 28-year-old center Nick Petan. Petan is somebody that the Rangers acquired on trade deadline day, kind of an under-the-radar move, one AHLer for another. And Petan, for his career, 170 NHL games with the Jets, Leafs, Canucks, and Wild, 35 points in those games. He also played 6 games with the Minnesota Wild this season. Between the Wolfpack and his previous AHL team, the Iowa Wild, so, combining all those numbers this season, Petan has played 49 AHL games, and has 12 goals, 29 assists for 41 points. That puts him just one behind Alex Belzile for the most on the Hartford Wolfpack, though Petan is also a -22, which is the worst mark on the Hartford Wolfpack. So make of that what you will. 5 games for Petan with the Wolfpack, no goals and 1 assist. He's also a -3, so he's not scoring, just like the entire team isn't scoring. I'd imagine with him, maybe getting used to a new team and new surroundings and whatnot. But, he does have some NHL experience. And as I said, when they acquired him, probably good to just have an extra, center, a little bit more organizational depth, an extra center with, at least some taste of NHL hockey that, if the injuries really pile up, at least we've got this guy that's played in the NHL in the past. So, yeah, that's where things stand with Petan. Also wanted to give a shout out to Brett Berard. Again, he's gone cold along with the entire rest of the Wolfpack as far as offense is concerned, but he had a goal not long ago, or a stretch not long ago, rather, where he scored 12 goals in 17 games. That stretch lasted from January 26th to March 8th, and it concluded with a hat trick on March 8th against Providence. Just a tough, scrappy player. I've mentioned this in the past, but, Berard has become one of my favorite kind of under-the-radar Ranger prospects, only he's not really so much under the radar anymore. People are starting to take notice, and he's 3rd on the Wolfpack in points. He's played very well. He had a couple of showings in the World Juniors, won the gold medal with Team USA, played some impressive hockey at that time. Not the biggest guy, but plays bigger than his frame would suggest that he would. And every trade deadline, last year, certainly this year, I'm always kind of wondering if he's going to make it through, or if this is one of those kind of second tier prospects that maybe Drury would trade away. But I'm glad he's still here. They found a way to not deal him. Again, he's just kind of a personal favorite of mine. But continuing this breakout season with the Wolf Pack, 58 games, he's got 23 goals and 17 assists. He played 3 games with the Wolf Pack last year, but for all intents and purposes, this is his first season of AHL hockey, and he's passing that test with flying colors. Really off to a nice start, and who knows, maybe we see Berard on the Rangers as soon as this upcoming season. Really looks like they got a steal, getting him in the 5th round. Sooner or later, yeah, assuming there's no trade of him or anything like that, I do think you'll eventually, probably not this year, but probably next year, see Brett Berard make his New York Ranger debut, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do. Another prospect who is certainly not under the radar in the slightest is Brandon Othmann. Again, whole team's in a scoring drought. Brandon Othmann is no exception. No goals and 4 assists in his last 10 games, but a good season overall for Othmann. 14 goals and 26 assists in 54 games. He is a minus 17, and we did, of course, see him with the Rangers for 3 games earlier this season. I've been sort of keeping the door cracked as far as, the possibility of Brandon Othmann rejoining the Rangers at some point this season. I really don't think it's going to happen. The chances are very slim, barring injuries or anything unforeseen, knock on wood there. But if the Rangers had gotten through the NHL trade deadline and not picked up a winger, obviously they got Jack Roslovic very late on trade deadline day. If that had not happened, then I think you owe it to yourself to at least consider the possibility of giving Brandon Othmann another look and another chance to, help the Rangers. But, the Rangers, Brian Roslovic, they brought in Wenberg. I know Wenberg is primarily a center, but obviously it's another forward and just more depth for the team overall. So at this point, probably not going to see Othmann again this season with the Rangers, but I think we'll see him next year. I would imagine he'll be given every chance to make the opening night roster, the same way that Will Cooley was afforded that chance this past season, and look how well he's played. So, we'll see how that goes, but Brandon Othmann having, once again, a strong season for the Wolfpack. And somebody else I want to mention here, Dylan Garand, former, I want to say 4th round pick by the Rangers, having a strong season, seems to get better and better as the years go by here, coming along nicely. He's 16, 10, and 5, a 273 goals against average, 909 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. And again, just one of those guys that steadily gets better and better. We saw him play for Team Canada and do very well for Team Canada in the World Juniors, and somebody that could have a future with the Rangers. I would imagine they're not really looking for him to make contributions to the Rangers next year. Obviously, you've got Igor and Jonathan Quick got his 1-year extension, but I would imagine maybe the year after that is when you might see Dylan Garand make his Ranger debut. We'll see. It's tough to predict these things, but I would imagine Dylan Garand is somebody that does have a future with the Rangers. And in fact, he actually played. I mean, he didn't actually play, but he dressed in a game for the Rangers this year. He was backing up Louis Domingue because on that night, both Igor and Quick were unavailable due to injuries. So Domingue and Garand were both there. Domingue got the start and did very well. But Garand, if nothing else, was at least on the bench, a member of the New York Rangers for that night. So that was cool to see. And we'll continue to track the progress of all these different players, all these prospects, or even the guys that aren't necessarily prospects, kind of veteran players who are in the AHL. Wolfpack obviously could really use a win, but we'll keep an eye on them going forward. And as for tonight, once again, Rangers Jets. Jets, one of the surprise teams of the NHL, coming into this season. And it's going to be a heavyweight matchup tonight. Connor Hellebuck listed as the starting goalie for the Jets. And Igor Shesterkin was listed right before I hit record here. He was listed as the likely goalie for the Rangers. And I would imagine he'd be out there. I mean, I guess you could go either way there. But no reason to not throw Igor back out there the way that he's been playing recently. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.